Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak. I'm so glad to talk with you all today. We're continuing our series on relationships, and we've got a lot of things to say today. I found some good articles and have some opinions, as usual, of my own. I hope you guys are doing well and having a happy life out there and a safe one because COVID's picked up again. We don't ever know when people are going to be listening to the show. It could be 5 years from now. You know, these things are mounted and archived. But if you're alive, stay well out there, okay? Stay well out there anyway, no matter what. It is fall, too, and my nose runs in the fall with the cold weather, so pardon me. I'll have to do that from time to time. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope these shows are helping you see relationships more clearly. The same rules apply and more, of course, to intimacy than they do to just regular wonderful friendships out in the world. So apply them as you will, but these are important things to know about ourselves and about people in general. So we're going to talk about today choosing a life partner. We're drilling down, so we've got less points to cover, but these are 5 very essential points to keep in mind. Hello, darling. Oh, good morning, Miss Cat. I'm so glad that you're with us today, my darling. And we're then going to talk about what sustains a relationship over time and what are the factors that we must have. Now, one of the things I want you to know is you don't have these factors all the time. Nobody does. But there are factors that you know about. You know, I didn't realize, and I'll pray for us in just a second. I didn't realize how important writing marriage vows were. I did not do it in my first marriage. In the second marriage, I was kind of forced into it, quite frankly. And it was odd because I didn't know how important it was. I know now because the things that we promised each other are things that we have as standards to live up to or to fall short of or to meet. And those things are really important, that to have that in your mind, to have that in your consciousness, to know what you're doing, to know the ground rules for a good relationship that are built into the marriage vows you write. Wow, it's made all the difference. It really has. Okay, let's do a prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much for our being here today and our talking about such an important thing, and our having choices in this world to make. We are so grateful for all of that and more. We now open ourselves to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we open to the truth that lies in our enlightenment. Keep us from overwhelm, dear God. Let us focus on your voice coming through us, saying what we need to do next to make our lives full. Thank you so much for all of this, dear God. We now say in all gratitude and in all humility, we know nothing. It is the you through us that knows it all. And we open to that part of all of us today. And so it is. Thank you. Amen. Okay. Hi, guys. I am so glad that you're tuned in today. We're going to have a good time. I found really a great article. Sometimes I don't find such great articles and change them around a lot. But this one really is quite the great article. It was written by a licensed marriage and family therapist. Her name is Linda Carroll. 5 factors to evaluate before choosing a life partner. Now, this does not mean you're screwed if you've got one that don't match these criteria. This certainly gives us something to work on, and hopefully we can work on it together. I have a dear client, and her husband is so far removed from all of this and what makes a good marriage work. She's a little too idealistic about everything, but he is stuck in a big way. I hope he'll get unstuck. He's showing every sign of not being unstuck. What I want you to know is how to make something like that work is that she must go on. She must make herself happy. She must be fulfilled in other ways. And hi, Pat. Oh, well, he liked my earrings. Thank you so much. The righteous blouse, Pat. Thank you very much. Well, darling, sometimes you just shop in your closet, you really do, and that's kind of what I'm doing today. Anyway, sweetie. So I do want you to hear what I'm saying, though, about this client. Her situation is far from ideal. So she's got to confront her allowing other people to see the world quite differently than she does, to manage what she must manage, but she's got to go on and find her potential within. And that is certainly what she's doing, and I'm very pleased about her progress. No matter who our partners are, no matter how fulfilled we are in relationships, we have to do work on ourselves. The best partnerships are two healed people, two emotionally mature people, two people who are great contributors and want to contribute to the relationship. That said, let's do a prayer. Oh, we've done the prayer. Oh, never mind. I don't know where I am today. All right, here we go. So 5 factors to evaluate before choosing a life partner. I really like this. She's apparently written a book called Love Cycles. I do not know this woman, Linda Carroll, but I am impressed with her article. She opens by saying she has a lot of people asking her, and I have a lot of people asking me, is this person the right one? Is this the one? Now, she doesn't say this, but I'm going to tell you as an intuitive, this is what Spirit says. You ready? When I ask a silly question like that, and it is a silly question, they say, I don't know, is it the one? Why do they say that to me? Because it is an agreement. It is what you are. You have to decide that. The other person has to decide that. This is a mutual agreement. There is no the one. There's just Mr. Right for right now and Ms. Right for right now. And the reason I do a show like this, though, is to say, let's become emotionally mature. Let's grow up in our egos and our ego child's minds. Let's merge with this higher self, and let's do a relationship that way. All relationships, whether it's a friendship or a partnership of some sort. This cannot be being caught up in the lifestyle. This cannot be, I need to get married because all my friends are married. This cannot be, I need to get married because I need to prove that I'm lovable to everybody else. And the thousands, and maybe even more than thousands, of other reasons that people marry. Because the divorce rate is 40-50% in this country. You get it? So let's be smart. Let's read ourselves and others very well. Okay? So, she makes a point of saying it's how we live that holds the key to really knowing us. I think that's really true. It's how we live. I don't think any of us are disguising anything to anyone who's really looking. Do you? I think if we really look past the presentments of people, we get it. We see it. Everybody sees it. That was the advantage in my class, because I've got an advanced class that have been with me for many years. These people are all heavy-duty intuitives. What do they think they're hiding in that class? And so what's so wonderful about that is everybody has reached this level of authenticity because everybody sees past any presentments. And so by now, after all these years, everybody's kind of dropped it. Everybody's just who they are as a loving individual. They're getting on with the next level of whatever their potential is in life. It's a good way to live, guys. And I hope you'll choose that. If you're listening to a show like this and you've been patient all along, then you probably have, huh? Okay. She says we must look for clues in reading other people with the logical part of our brain. It's important that our head and our hearts are involved in this decision. But I am going to tell you that I see a lot of, hi Bruce, good morning to you, my dear. I'm so glad that you are with us today. So it becomes extremely important for us to realize that this is not just an emotional reaction we're having. If it's an emotional reaction we're having, that can get us in a lot of trouble. It really can. There's something called, in my work, this is my work, you won't find it anyplace else, but in my work there's something called resonance. What resonance is a secret emotion or state of being, something you're even hiding from yourself or don't want to look at very often. I'm diverging from this article. And what resonance is something that you carry that you're really trying to avoid, but it's carried deep in the bowel. That's where in the body it's usually hidden. And sometimes when we meet someone who has that resonance too, we never put it up and on the table. We never say, I have low self-esteem and you have low self-esteem too. Let's call it love. But that's what we're doing, you see. Now, what can resonance be? It can be guilt. It can be low self-esteem. It can be grief. I met a person years and years and years ago, and I had just lost all my family, and he had just lost a lot of his. And we met, and wow, it was just chemistry city, right? It wasn't chemistry city. It was resonance. We both understood each other on that level. And then we say, oh, true love, nobody understands me like you. But do you understand that when that heals, and it will, if everybody's doing the right work on themselves, then you've got to have something else, right? Good to know. Okay. So there's a lot that you must use and be aware of when you are choosing a partner. She says, unite the head and heart. I say absolutely. I also say a lot of other things. So here we go. We're going to dive into this because I've made notes all over the place, right? Okay. I wrote something. Oh, I guess I can write it there. Okay. I think it's enormously important to find out how the relationships go in their family of origin. How do they treat their family? I am very suspicious in sessions with anybody coming in and saying, oh, my family was perfect. I actually had somebody do that the other day. Oh, my family is perfect. It was just ideal, perfect. And then this person went about telling me a lot of abuse. And so I listened to it for a while. And then I said, now, how do you resolve that with a perfect family? This person never realized it was not a perfect family, that there was major, major mental illness in this family. So the first thing we want to do is realize things from a balanced, realistic experience. So it's very important to find out the quality of their relationships. I don't like to hear that something was 100% terrible. I don't like to hear it was 100% perfect when I'm hearing about families, because neither one of those is true. It just indicates to me that somebody isn't very aware, because no family is perfect. No life is perfect. So I want you all to try, and she recommends this, and I think it's so important, try to determine how much they're able to accept, to forgive, and to support family members. I think that's extremely important. If you go on with a relationship with this person, that's how you're going to be treated. Don't you think it's important to find that out? I do. Look how much they blame. Look how much trouble they make for others. Look how much drama they create. Oh, that's so important. Drama in a relationship, man, you've heard me lecture on that. Not a good thing. Now, she goes on to write about the way a balanced person would talk about their family. I think this is so good, I'd like to read it. I don't usually make direct quotes, but here's one. This is real important. So let's say you're out on a date with a new person, and this, I would imagine, man, I don't really know. I don't know what the gender is here. Well, he says, my dad's an interesting guy. He's so loving and generous, but he's had a hard struggle with depression. He's a glass half empty sort of guy, yet he tries to be more upbeat. The problem is he's very reluctant to seek help, and he's kind of stuck in his ways. But growing up, I remember how, most of all, he always loved and supported me. Although he didn't often show up at my activities, I always knew it wasn't because he didn't care. Now, that's a really interesting way to talk about things. That's somebody who sees all sides and has done some work on forgiveness, you see. That's balanced. And that's realistic. So, her next point is past relationships. Look at how they talk about past relationships. She goes on to say, it's important to discover what kinds of friendships someone has or they currently have. The best sign is that they've kept a few of their oldest friends. Do they have friends from high school or even grammar school? Oh, hello, Sheila. Thank you so much. She said she missed me last week. Thank you so much, darling. Once in a while, I'm trying to write a book, so once in a while I've just got to take off time to do so. And by the way, thank you for telling me, but this is Thanksgiving week, so happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I am going to be taking next Sunday off because of those holidays, because I'm going to try to have almost a week of constant work on the book so I can really catch up with my editor. I am behind. She says so graciously, you don't have to catch up with me. And the truth is I do, because otherwise I'm going to be overwhelmed. You know, we are doing this in 50-page increments, but I'm already 100 pages behind. So it's just in my psychological health to keep up a little more than I'm doing. So there we are. So forgive me, but I'm going to miss this next Sunday, I'll be back the following Sunday. Okay, I promise. And we'll keep going. And I missed you guys too. I don't think you all know how much fun I have with you. Yes, thank you, Sheila. She's saying happy Thanksgiving to all of us too. I miss you when I'm not on the air. Something's not quite right. Hello, darling. Hello, Linda. I'm glad to see you too. Yeah, I get thrilled seeing all of my old friends here. This is just great, and new ones coming in all the time. So it's important to discover what kind of friendship someone has or currently has. It's wonderful when friendships really go back a number of years. I think that's terrific. And I think it's really important for someone to take responsibility if friendships have failed as well, and what the culpability was in that. It's important that you notice, and certainly these are wonderful tips for you too, that someone doesn't pan an ex-partner or a past lover or a ex-husband or an ex-wife. That's a pretty, when they're derogatory about something like that, that's actually says more about their character than it does about the other person. Because most people only see in part anyway, especially when emotions are involved. So if they're throwing things around like, oh, he was such a total narcissist, or do you know what a borderline personality is? Well, that was my ex-wife. You better be careful. People that are balanced and fair-minded don't talk about each other that way. They just don't. So look for fair-mindedness. Look for that kind of balance. My next point, and her next point, I should say, is number 3. And it's how they handle anger. This involves your observing rather than asking, how do you handle anger? I mean, you could ask, but I don't know whether anybody's going to tell you the truth or not. Watch how they behave when they don't get their way or when something happens. I remember going out on a date with a perfectly lovely man. He wasn't my perfectly lovely man, but he was a perfectly lovely man. And we went to a real fancy dinner, and we came out to his beautiful car, and we realized that he had left his sunroof open, and there had been a big rainstorm while we were in the restaurant, and everything in the car was soaked. And I stood back and I thought, oh, that's going to be so interesting to see what he does with that, right? And he said, oh, well, and he opened the trunk and got out some towels and wiped down the car. And we got on in it and got on with our night. Isn't that wonderful? He was not my guy, but I did, if you're listening, whoever you are out there, I can't even remember your name, but I was very impressed with that behavior. I thought that was lovely. How they handle anger. When they don't get their own way, when they're disappointed, when they feel that somebody's disagreeing with them. That's an important one. I know a lot of people that get very manic when somebody disagrees with them. And it's just a difference of opinion. A difference of opinion in many cases is not going to hurt anybody. You know, I think we had a great discussion last night at dinner and at lunch with a neighbor, talking about all sorts of things, the state of the world and COVID and politics, and everybody had a different opinion, but everybody was just really open about it, and we were all listening to each other and thought the other person had valid points. It was a very nice discussion. It makes us all smarter, but watch for people that can't handle that have such a strong opinion about themselves and the world and how it all works, that they're protecting the structure instead of really listening and learning and opening the mind and sharing what they know and listening to what you know. Um, I say again, how people act under these circumstances that we're talking about now says a lot about how they're going to act with you. So I think that's an extremely important thing. The next point, number 4, that she brings up is generosity. You're looking for someone who is generous. She feels that this is the number 1 key to a good relationship. I don't know whether I'd go that far. I think creating a great deal of safety is number 1 for me. That everybody feels safe in the relationship, and all of these things and more tear down safety. Personality flaws certainly tear down safety if we don't handle them in a responsible manner. So she thinks that this is number 1 key to a good relationship. I do say that it is extremely important. She cites this because this is a long-term study at the University of Virginia on successful relationships, and they said that generosity was important. Watching how generous your potential partner is in their treatment and discussion of others is extremely important. I think what she's talking about is, does this person give anybody the benefit of the doubt? Do you give people the benefit of the doubt? When we are love struck, she goes on to say, we're all as generous as loving as we can be. You remember that how somebody presents in the beginning is the best they're going to be. Do you realize that? It's the best they're going to be. They're presenting to you something that they're hoping will be very acceptable to you. So you watch it, because if that's not very nice, and I've known people that, I have clients that'll go out on a date and they'll say, this person that I went out with talked 100% of the time about themselves. Not once did this other person ask about me. Not once. Wow. And then the big thing there is they didn't even realize it. What? They didn't even realize that they never asked about the other person? It's beyond me. But there are people like that, so watch out for them. I think a generosity goes beyond what she's talking about right now. I think that generosity has a lot to do with kindness. I think it has everything to do with kindness. I know when I listen throughout the year when my husband says he likes this or likes that or needs this or whatever. Oh, I've got my list going, right? If it's around a holiday, I'll buy those things for him. If it's not around the holiday, whatever. When we don't have a lot of money, as we didn't with our, we still carry this tradition on. We'll write love letters to each other on the holidays. It's beautiful, you know. You don't have to spend money on this. There can just be little things, little thoughtful things, little jump in there and contribute things. That's generosity. That's generosity. Number 5 is a full life. Oh, this is so important. Let's talk about this one. You're going to have to determine, and then, of course, this applies to you. But let's talk about the other person for a minute. Determine whether they have meaning in their life that doesn't necessarily relate to you. It was very important when my husband's Austrian, as you know, and he was in Vienna, Austria all his life. And he retired from his work and came here and joined me in the United States. There was a lot to consider here, that he really wanted to do this in addition to loving me. It was real important that he was accepting the full life that this would be, right? Not just being married to me. Very important. That he had meaning in his life in all sorts of different ways, and he was willing to find new levels of it. I'll always be grateful for that. But when we're talking about you, we're saying you need to find someone, and you need to be interested, passionate. You have to have a history of expanding yourself, seeking, learning, growing, evolving, all sorts of ways. This is the full life, of course, isn't it? This is how you bring the whole person to a committed relationship with someone else, and they bring it to you. So I have met people in my past that have great big dreams. You've got to determine whether those are dreams or fantasies, because fantasies are never going to come true, you see. Fantasies are their own reward. You want to look at whether people have had these dreams and ideas and visions and acted on them and actually made something and implemented them in life. Do they have a history of that? Or just sitting and waiting? She goes on to say that the key to intimacy is the ability to be separate. I think that's really quite a nice thing to say, and I agree with her about that. Until you know yourself and feel whole and clear in what you want for your life, she says you'll never be able to be the best partner that you can be. I think that might be one of the reasons you listen to the show, at least I hope so, because we must do that work on ourselves before we are the best partner that we can be. And we look for partners who feel that way too. Now, it was really interesting because my husband never heard of the work I do. They don't have that in Austria. You know, the Catholic Church pretty much runs everything in Austria. So this was rare over there, this kind of thing. And yet he lived it. And yet he lived it. I can't tell you how many people come to me and they say, oh, you know, I've read this man's profile or this woman's profile, and they sound so great. They say they're conscious. They say that. Guys, you know, a lot of people can say all that. But are they good people? Those things are not an assumption. Those two things may not go together. So look for a good person, a kind person, an honest person. She goes on to say it's counterintuitive. I don't know whether it really is, quite frankly. But she says we really only get the most intimacy out of a relationship when we have done the most work on ourselves. I do think that's true. That's the reason I do these shows, okay? She says that, and she goes on to say that there are really two parts when you are considering a partner to consider. The first part is trusting your heart and the chemistry and your intuition. I think that's great. Right brain stuff, right? But part two is to look at these things that we're talking about here, their abilities, whether they put things to action, what their issues are, look at their friends, and what their friends say about them, what their family says, how they've decorated their home. I know that sounds crazy, but if I walk into a man's home, or a woman's for that matter, at 70 years old, and there's nothing in there, if it's completely sparse, or, by the way, if there's way too much in there, I do wonder, you know, and I want to know more. We have to look at everything. There's a lot of objective data to consider. So the feeling part is an important indicator, but the rational part is an equal partner to that. So use both, please. Now, I found another article that I also liked very much indeed, although I changed it a little bit. So, I'm kind of keen on doing that. A lot of these articles address things psychologically, and that's marvelous. I address that certainly, but the end result for me is consciousness and enlightenment, deeper levels of looking at things. So I changed things a little bit. This was on some site called The List, and it was saying these words could make a world of difference in your marriage. It was written by Joey Coe. I think the name is Coe. It's Keogh. I don't know whether this person is a woman or a man. Joey could be, I guess, either way. This went on to say that manners are everything in successful marriages. And I want to tell you, I think they are. Sometimes Michael and I forget, and we'll shoot things out real fast. I'll tell you when I do it. I'm vulnerable at this point. If I'm giving a big party and there's a lot to do, cleaning the house, we're in a small house right now, so negotiating how we're going to feed all those people, buffet style or sit down, getting everything ready at the same time, decorating the house, setting the table, all of those things that we think about and more. I tend to, Michael says, give orders. I don't realize that it's sounding demanding, but it does. Because I'm saying, we need those glasses down, we need these things, because there's some things in the house I can't reach. We need the glasses down from here, I'm going to need the big salad bowl. From that, I need this, and will you do that for me? And he always stops and he goes, I know you meant to say please. It's like, oh, please, yes, I'm sorry, I meant to say that. He has the same thing that goes on. We just laughed about it this morning. I said, this is what I'm talking about today on the radio, because he asked me to do something or other, but it was you need to do this kind of thing. And by the way, that's very typical of the German-Austrian heritage, isn't it? I mean, that Teutonic thing, do this, do that, do this, do that. Real important. And I said the same thing to him. Don't you mean please? And he said, absolutely, please. I'm so grateful. So, guys, it doesn't just mean that you have to think about it all the time. We all get too busy. There are times that we're particularly vulnerable to fall back into giving orders, right? Know what those times are and change them. That's all it is. And if your partner's talking to you that way, or you're talking to your partner that way, realize it and just say, whoa, excuse me, please. Yes, thank you so much. I'd appreciate it. You see? Okay. All long-term successful relationships really have to be worked on. I remember some time ago, somebody at the Academy Awards or Golden Globes or something, some movie star, I don't even know who it was, said, I want to thank my wife or something, or my husband. It's a lot of work, but, and he got jumped on, or she got jumped on for that. And I thought that was the silliest thing in the world, because let me tell you, if we're realistic, it's work. Do it. That's all. We're all in the process of doing that. Now, this writer, Joey, I'm just going to call this person Joey because I don't know what else to say, goes on to talk about an author named Mark Manson. And he wrote a lengthy piece for Quartz. I think that's an online magazine, isn't it? I think so. He studied whether respondents were happily married for decades or on their third or fourth try. He accepted both of those inputs. And what he said was the same things that made people, happy couples, kept popping up. Among the answers Manson received were calls to always show each other respect, to know how to fight properly, and to be together for the right reasons. This writer goes on to say that falling in love is easy, but staying in love, particularly over time, when losses, both financial and personal, threaten to derail people, along with, by the way, many other life challenges, it isn't as easy anymore. But there are some rules to follow so that when those rough times hit, you'll be more likely to work it through. So he goes on to say that manners mean everything in successful marriages. Tying into what Mark Manson discovered about respect and why it's important, especially as time passes, they found that being mannerly can make a considerable difference, regardless how long it's been or what kind of mood you're in, because you're going to need to make the effort no matter what. Even if you are in mid-argument, it costs you nothing to be polite. We must bring politeness into our long-term relationships. And moving on from that, small gestures can really make a difference. I know when Michael and I argue, and I'm usually doing a little, well, I can't always say that's true. I know that when Michael has been mad with me, he's come up and fixed my light in my office. I know when I've been mad with him, I'll fix him a cup of coffee, or I'll fix him something to eat in the refrigerator. You must continue. Remember that lecture on generosity just now? You must be generous. You must not let... First of all, let me put on the table that I've asked this for a long time. What's more important, winning the argument or love? What's more important? First of all, if you don't say love, I don't think you have I don't think you ought to be in relationship at all, in my opinion, because I don't think you're mature enough to have a relationship. That's harsh, isn't it? I'm sorry, but that's really true. Because when you are in a relationship, and if it's going to be a successful one, love is the most important thing, even when you're really mad at the other person, and your job is to work through the issue and get back to that. There's nothing more important than that. Okay, as long as we understand each other. Neglecting to simply acknowledge such small acts of consideration, by the way, and kindness, by saying please and thank you, or showing any sign of gratitude, is going to build resentment, and it will every time. It's important because I think we do forget these things. One of the things that you'll hear me talking about this probably a little later too. One of the things I thought was so important about in our marriage vows, in Michael's and mine, was that we promised to remember why we fell in love to begin with. I hold a sacred way of seeing Michael. He's a good man. He always tries his best. He hurts like I do when something hurts his feelings. He is a loving person, and he is always trying to be generous and helpful and creative and kind. I hold that for him as he holds how he sees me. And it is in the holding of that we can actually say, babe, what's wrong? Something's wrong. What is it? You see? And then the other person says, well, now that you mention it, I'm worried about this. And then there are all of a sudden 4 shoulders to carry the burden, not 2. And you talk about it. And guys, if you all don't think that's intimacy, you've got an idea of intimacy that's all wrong. Because intimacy, yes, can be the separateness we talked about, but it can also be coming together, not just in bed with your clothes off. But real intimacy is talking about what's troubling you and knowing you're perfectly safe in doing so. And that somebody may be there either just to listen and to say, I'm so sorry, or you'll get through it, or give you a pat on the back, or to say, let's talk about this solution or that. Maybe you can, there's some answers here. You understand? Okay. Once you're aware that you're not showing gratitude, I think it becomes very easy to show gratitude. We start listening to ourselves. The other person will remind us if we decide to have a pact in that area. And what distinguishes, Joey says, what distinguishes the marriages that last from those that don't is not how often they argue, but how they argue and how they treat each other on a daily basis. I think that's a really important thing for us to consider. Now, I found another article, and I thought this one was okay. I've written a lot all around this one, so we're going to take it beyond the article. But this is an article that's signs that your relationship can last a lifetime. I don't know why I've got a hiccup. Excuse me. Signs that your relationship can last a lifetime by Kat Lifuente. I would imagine Kat is, like my cat, is certainly a woman. Okay. She said there are some pretty telltale signs that you can last, you and your partner can stand the test of time. Number 1, she says you maintain a crush on your partner. Now, I'm going to say that I think that's kind of a shallow way of saying that. I think that all of us forget who we are from time to time. Sometimes we get really busy and we forget to be kind. Sometimes we are angry at ourselves and it comes out as a harsh tone to our partners. There are many, many things that we can do like that momentarily clue us into we're forgetting who we are in our highest selves, of course. What I have just said to you, though, about holding how wonderful people really are and why we fell in love with them and how they wanted to be seen at that time is a wonderful thing we can do for each other. And this is how, in my opinion, you maintain the crush that she talks about. This helps me never forget why I fell in love with that wonderful man named Michael Novak. And if he's doing that with me, and I think he is because we've promised it to each other, this is how we can weather all storms, you see? This is how you get beyond things. How does he or she want to be seen? And how do you want to be seen? Wouldn't it be wonderful if someone held it for you and could always say, I think something's wrong. What's going on here? You see? She's talking about, and I certainly think this is important, that it's not as important to me as holding a space for the other person. She recommends doing little things, certainly before you are in partnership and afterwards. For example, buying presents, checking in throughout the day to see how somebody's day is going, fixing their favorite foods, all that kind of thing, without complaining, by the way. I catch myself complaining. My husband, being Austrian, loves schnitzel more than anything in the world. Schnitzel is a damn lot of trouble to make. So I have to psych myself into standing on my feet for 2 solid hours before I ever start cooking, assembling the schnitzel. I can do it. Kissing hello and goodbye, doing little things like that. Now, you don't have to do tons of them. There is a love language that is going to require more of that, by the way. So if you are that, you certainly need to clue your partner into it. My love language are words. I love words. I love pretty words. You look good, I love you, things like that. Oh, that's really a smart thing for you to say. That kind of thing means a lot to me. Michael's is physical touch. And, I think that's a lovely one as I get older, because sex is wonderful, but sex, they say, is not going to last the rest of our lives. It will diminish a little bit, but touch won't ever go away. Isn't that nice? So I think that's a good one for us to indulge in, a pat, a kiss as we go by. She goes on to say, number 2, have date nights. Right. She goes on to say that we all get too busy and carry on, but I think this is something you need to decide up front with a partner. Is the relationship that you have with your partner number 1 or not? In my opinion, that's always number 1, and children are number 2. I just think that's healthy. If you don't have that relationship, you don't have anything. If you let anything interfere with that. I think that everything starts in relationship. When you are 2, you must accept you are 2, not 1, and everything starts there. So, to me, I think it becomes very important that relationship never takes the back burner. Certainly I'm writing a book, and a lot of times my brain is there, and I'll go down and get a cup of tea, but I always try to go and visit Michael and love on my partner a minute before I come back up and sit at the computer. I often interrupt him if he's building something in the basement right now, and I'll go down there and give him a kiss, and he stops, and we put the relationship first. If we had small children, which of course we don't at our age, but if we did, I would still be saying what I do. It's extremely important that you all are united as a family, but the leaders are the relationship, okay? Number 3, she thinks it's a good idea that you continue to have sex, and I think so too. What is sex? Here's what I think the best sex is, okay? It's when you're expressing your love for each other, and your mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies unite and pass through the physical body. That's a really satisfying sex. I want to say I think sex is important, or regular intimacy at some point. I think whatever your if you have any sexual fears or problems, those are really important things to address. There are answers out there for everything. Sweeties, we all don't feel like having sex all the time. We don't. But are you generous enough, here's that word again, to give it to your partner if your partner wants it, even if your mind is on something else? This is terrible. I'm telling you such intimate things today. But when I was married to my first husband, I was directing a lot of theater, of musical theater. I was in a lot of musical theater, and I was directing a lot of musical theater. I guess I was in it more before I married him. But anyway, and I would be so, I could do nothing but think about the show. It was like going on, the next day or something. It was going to be opening night. And I would always tease. I would say, if he wanted sex, it was like, if you can hum a few bars from the show, I think I can get in the mood. But it was like, my brain can't hold it all. Anyway, that was just a little silliness. She says regular intimacy, even if you have to schedule it, I'm not a scheduler myself, will help you reduce tension. And she says protect your partnership from the regular, less sexy stresses of life, which sets you up for long-term success. I think it's just really important. And she goes on to say that non-sexual touch is important too. Snuggling on the couch, kiss hello or goodbye. Thank you, Sheila. I'm embarrassed. Holding hands, any of that is lovely, is quite lovely. Oftentimes, depending on who we are, but oftentimes when we physically connect, we emotionally connect. That isn't always true. That's only true of certain learning and communication styles. You can read more about that on my website, which is, what is it? Martha Novak, Novak.com. Okay. Number 4, you find happiness in everyday things together. And I do think that is so important. We have to move past the dopamine phase where we're all, smitten in love. When we move out of the honeymoon phase, we've got to find happiness in the daily joys and struggles in life, in the discussions, in the little things we do for each other, and in the things we discover together, One of the best dates I ever had, first dates before I met my husband, was when Trader Joe's opened for the first time. And this date and I had never met him before, decided that we were going to go to investigate Trader Joe's. We had more fun. It was so fun. And then we got some groceries together and came home and cooked them, all our favorite things. It was loads of fun. That was a really very sweet time. And I hope he's doing well out there in the world. Michael and I enjoy all sorts of things. We love animals. We take delight in the animals that are running around our house. We take delight. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting living out here in the country because you see all sorts of things. Deer and bears and little groundhogs, and you're just seeing things all the time. Wild turkeys. And it's really fun. We'll stop and we hopefully can take a picture, and it's just beautiful. We also like road trips. We have always enjoyed traveling together. So we'll just get in the car and visit little surrounding towns or, go somewhere. And I do recommend that you find out what you all enjoy doing together. You don't have to do everything together, but you have to do some things together. I think that is very important. Sometimes we just like spending time doing nothing. We'll watch television, together at the end of the night for an hour or two. Number 5, she says you're willing to compromise. And I agree with her about that. The thing that worries me a little bit about this article is she's talking about emotionally mature people. You can't do this if you feel like if you're insecure and you feel like you always have to be right. If you feel like you can't make a mistake and have a perfectionist issue, you have a very hard time compromising. And guys, I think there's something more important than compromising. You know what it is? Being able to work out your problem. It may involve a compromise, it may not. But when we have a problem, okay, and different ways of handling that problem, it doesn't help for you to just continue to scream at each other. That's just this, everybody knocking into each other, and there are no solutions there. So the larger place to go is for everybody to come off their pole. I'm right, you're right, I'm right. These poles that we set up and we justify. Somebody's got to start coming to the middle so the other person will, and then that's where the solution is. Then we say, look, if this ever happens again, how do we both get what we want? Great idea, right? How do we both get what we want? I tell you that silly story about the pans under the counter that, Michael likes the pans stacked. I don't have time to stack those pans. I do it. I'd be delighted to do it when I can sit down and take the time. That's not my life. My life is doing this and doing this all day long as I counsel people and writing books and keeping up my friendships and my darling animals and taking care of everybody. That's what I do. It's not stacking pans. He has more time to stack the pans. He's retired, and those are important to him. So we made an agreement, you see. You make an agreement saying, my darling husband, I will love it if you will stack the pans for me, but you don't have to do it every time because I really understand that kind of schedule. But if the pans are bothering you and you need to stack them, go right ahead. Now, that's a solution, and I will really appreciate it. And every time I see that done, I'm going to say thank you. That's a solution. He gets what he wants. I get what I want. Everybody's happy. And we try to find those solutions. If we cannot find those solutions, then certainly a compromise is on the table. But sometimes you don't need a compromise. You just need to work it out, right? So that everybody gets what they want. This requires, and I do say so, flexibility and adaptability. You're a better partner if you're adaptable and flexible. I guarantee you, you are. Some people just aren't. This is a question of your finding out why you're not flexible and adaptable, because at your nature you are. That's how people evolved. They had to be flexible and natural. And adaptable. That's how animals survive. Species survive, darlings. It's very important to be flexible and adaptable. So if you find yourself having a hard time being, then that needs to be addressed. And you need to find out why. In my opinion, there is no truth. Everybody has a truth. So yes, you can say there is no truth or that everybody has one, so everything's true. I usually say that one. Everything's true. So all that's important here is that you know what's true to you. You keep an open mind. You don't marry anything. You're just trying to find out, what the other person feels and make it work. They have a truth too. What's wrong with their truth? Nothing, because they believe it. So don't argue on the level in which there are no solutions. Go to the place where there are solutions. What are we going to do the next time? How are we going to make this work for both of us? It takes some creative thinking. It does. And it takes flexibility and adaptability. Okay. They actually have the line in here, if you and your partner are good at finding solutions that make you both happy, that's what I'm talking about, it's a good indicator that you will have a successful future. Number 6, you've overcome adversity. I'm not sure there's much if people are genuinely wanting to do everything to save their marriage. I'm not sure there are any things that would be a deal breaker. I've seen marriages thrive that have had infidelity in them. One indiscretion. I'm not talking about a string of them. Unless they're both okay with that, cooperative with that. It becomes a question of working through things in a balanced, honorable, and supportive way. Adversity, I've noticed for years, let me start here, because I've got a lot to say about this. Let me start here. I've noticed for years that the animals, through the years, that I was closest to are the ones that we pulled through something together. Now, I love all my animals, but we don't honestly know how much we all mean to each other until we pull through something together. I think people are the same way. As tough as things can get, we can be stronger for it. She says, if you've been through adversity together and your relationship grew stronger, it's a good sign you can handle anything that comes your way. I certainly agree with that, but I will say that overcoming adversity bonds a couple to each other. And therefore it has a better chance of lasting. Of course, if you are not someone that shares, not someone that communicates, if you're not somebody that can be emotionally fluid and share and be vulnerable with your partner and tell them what's going on, there's a good chance it won't last. That's why I say, come on, guys, you've got to get emotionally flexible. You've got to be able to tell the truth. You should be able to say anything to your partner. Do you understand that? In an ideal world, you should be able to say anything to your partner. I think I told you, referred to this couple earlier. This woman who's married to a man cannot say everything to a partner. He's got loads of personality issues. He's making every choice to stay stuck in where he is and believe negative things about his wife, even though she's just trying to help. And the only choice here, if she stays in that marriage, which right now she chooses to do so, then she's got to make herself happy in a lot of different ways, by finding who she is at her potential, by contributing in life, by doing all the things that she enjoys. Okay. I say that some people at this point go out and have affairs. I don't think she will, and I don't think you need to. I think affairs are there sometimes when we have a door to open inside of us and we don't know how to do it, or we're still avoidant about it, and we seek a distraction. We can also have a lot of fantasy involved with that as well, because we can tell ourselves this is the love of our life and it's going to last when it won't. So I'm not saying that all of those things don't work. I'm saying that the majority of them don't, and that, like anything else, you better know yourself quite well and know why you are acting the way you're acting, right? Okay. Her next point is number 7. You fight fair. You have learned to fight fair. Nobody knows how to fight fair unless they learn. Conflict is certainly a natural occurrence. It happens in every human relationship, whether we're talking about partners or whether we're talking about friends. You must learn to fight fair. She has written some things here. I'm going to tell you my opinion instead. When you all have a disagreement, you need to know how much time it takes you to figure out what the real problem is and how much time the other person needs to figure out what the real problem is. How do I want to say this? I get emotion faster than Michael. Being an engineer, he gets it in about 12 hours. So it's best for us to go to bed mad. So in the morning, I'm not particularly mad. I may be mad, but I've got to wait. So what I do is I go and I make myself very happy doing whatever it is that I do. I may go shopping. I may watch a television. I may come up here and write. I may call a friend. I may do anything that I do that I enjoy. I may garden. What happens is then he's doing the same thing, trying to figure things out. And by morning, we usually can say, okay, here's how I feel. And he says, here's how you feel. And we say, okay, then what are we going to do about it? And we fix it. That's usually the way it goes. So my first advice is to give it time. And not only give it time, but actually know how much time it takes for everybody to figure themselves out. That's something that's going to help you a lot if you know how much time everything takes. Okay? Because it's not about the situation. It is about you and how much time it's going to take you to do this and your partner to do this. So go to bed mad if you must. Why not? Not going to kill you. Then number 3, talk through things. Finally get to the place where you can talk through it. Talk through it. Well, this is how I felt, and this is how I interpreted it, and this is how you felt, he says. This is how I interpreted it. You remember there are only 2 things to talk about here. So go to those 2 things. This did not make me feel cared about. This is how I interpreted it. Well, I didn't mean that at all. And he probably did not, or she did not. And number 2, I never get what I want. Usually the worse the argument is, both of those things are at play. Talk about that. Fix it on those levels. Okay. And then I have a 4th point, and that is, you are not finished with this discussion until you love your partner more. I found this through the years. This is the way we grow in deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper love. This is another form of intimacy, isn't it? To reveal those unloving places within us and let them go and get them straight and go on to loving in a deeper and more powerful manner. So you're not finished until you love each other more. She says, kiss and make up. Kissing and making up is such a shallow way of saying this, I've got to say. No, you've got to talk this through until you both are heard and you both get it and you're on that deeper level of love. I want to address one other thing. If a lot of people are archetypes of themselves instead of just being authentic, which I feel is really pretty much past an archetype. And a lot of people think themselves as warriors, as this or as that. I want to say that those archetypes are good to start out, to go to the next level of your evolvement. But then you're going to a place where there aren't any. You're just you. You're just you. Something that really can get in the way are archetypes. If you're the warrior, you're going to be fighting all the time. There's nothing to fight here. There are only solutions to be found and love to be felt. Thank you. You understand? I hope so. Good. Number 8, she goes on to say, you appreciate and encourage the other person's growth. I think that's really important. She does say something really important here, which is people are dynamic individuals, all of whom will grow and change over time, and it's important to let them. You see, if you have insecurity and somebody starts working and your partner starts working with me, suppose she doesn't love me after this. You know, I've seen people do that. Inevitably, these people break up with their partners. These people are revealing themselves as insecure and they don't want to do anything about it. If they did, they'd get to work on themselves as well. Come on, guys, we all have to change and grow. If you're with someone, there is a empowering opportunity to have different interests, passions, viewpoints, and needs as you go through the years together. Of course, you want this other partner to understand you. The best thing about a partnership, they found, is novelty. It makes us happy. I happen to have some information. Michael has to have some information. We run back after the day and we share all that. Isn't that fun? We share information. That's novelty. That keeps things interesting. So it's very important that you keep learning, that you keep stretching out, you keep growing, you keep finding the next thing. It's very important for other people to do it. What's required here, if there is an insecurity, is more love. A love beyond any kind of selfishness, a love beyond yourself. And oftentimes, letting go of that kind of insecurity is the thing that keeps you together, because you all are both growing and moving past the selfishness that's been there so far. Okay. That's how you keep people long term and they keep you. That you are grateful for their growth instead of being threatened by it. 9, you stay curious about each other. I like this one. Do you, when you come home from work, do you say, how was your day? And are you really interested? Or are you bored to death? And it's just something to say. You can't afford to be bored to death. There are some things that Michael does, what he's building in the basement, that I can't hope to understand. But you know what? I love the fact that he's excited about it. I do. And while my book is not something that an engineer, Michael, being the physicist he is, would ever particularly understand or care about, he cares about it for me. I can't tell you how many times he's read every rendition, every editing process. It's what people do that love each other. We give each other spaces to thrive and to change and to grow and to learn. It makes life richer for both of you as the years roll by. Number 9. Oh, that was number 9. Number 10. You make relationships a priority. I said that to you before. Yeah, this is the important thing in your life. This is the important thing. The relationship is the important thing. Everything else is done in relationship to that relationship. You understand? I mean, that was too many relationships in a sentence, but nevertheless, you understand what I'm talking about. And it's very important for you to choose someone that is emotionally mature to begin with. Because if, everybody says, they'll say anything in the beginning, guys, we want to look good to each other, right? Oh, we'll look good to each other. The fact is that you don't really know whether they're going to put a relationship first and how they plan on doing that. You guys got to talk about this to make sure that you're on the same page. Do you understand? You have to be on the same page. Use the language. Ask these deep questions. Talk about these things. Well, if you're going to put the relationship first, what does that mean? Does it mean not going out and having a relationship with somebody else? Yeah, probably so. Does it mean not occasionally working late at the office? I'd be forgiving of that because sometimes I work late at the office. What does it mean? And then you can find out what you've got or you don't have, you see. Number 11, you can say what you think. She says you can both be constructively critical. I don't like that phrase. It's simply because of my background. This did not happen in my family, but I grew up with a woman whose mother constantly said that she was offering constructive criticism, and she was the meanest woman I've ever known in my life. She ruined generations of her family. I say you get to say what you think in a loving way. Suggestions that are given that way are not an affront, and we must get over taking things personally. You understand? So that's something that you should work on if you take things too personally. What we do, though, need to learn is how to say things that are not demanding and not controlling. How to say things in a loving manner to people so that we don't set off any triggers. She goes on to say, to the extent that an individual views his or her partner's criticism as scorn, that individual is demonstrating doubt of the partner's good intentions, and that is a relationship toxin, and I do believe that. We're almost finished. I wonder if I can finish in 7 minutes. Number 12, you value each other's opinions. I think that's really important, that we value each other's opinions, but I'm going to say that's relative to, do you make a good presentation of your opinions? Are you telling somebody what to do? That we just cannot do. If both partners respect and encourage each other's inputs and opinions, how marvelous. My husband doesn't know a thing about fiction writing in my book, but he's read it several times. He's come up with 2 suggestions for me that were the most brilliant thing in the world and changed the trajectory of everything. And I went with him. You bet I did. And number 13, I have finished because this was something that we said earlier. You have got to be polite to each other. It's just not going to work if you're not. You must learn to be polite to each other. This is the time for politeness. I have been horrified through the years that people that take each other for granted in relationships, and they think they'll always be there, and the other person should read their minds, and the other person has signed on to love them no matter what, and they're mean. Nobody signed on for that, guys. We signed up for a mature, loving relationship with someone that we thought we could trust, and you thought you could trust us. That's really important to realize. Okay? So, guys, I hope this has helped. I'm going to stop right there. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk about people and their problems about relationships, like commitment anxiety and things like that. We're going to talk about how how to deal with things like that. Guys, love you very much. And I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Don't know when you're listening to this, but right now, for us and for the people that are listening to this live show, it certainly is Thanksgiving time. Happy Thanksgiving, you guys. We have so much to be grateful for. You know, honestly, this is one of my favorite times of year in the world, because we should keep this in our psyches all year long, how grateful we are to everything. I think it's so important. I think if we ever want to change negative thinking to more positive thinking, all we have to do is sit down every day and write the blessings of our lives down, and then it makes us feel better. I know that I often recommend that for people right before they go to bed, and what happens is, they wake up with a better frame of mind. Now, Sheila's speaking to me. She says, sometimes my husband has said to me, "What did I just tell you?" That takes me back to a past toxic ex-husband and how I was treated. But I have told him how this makes me feel. He never realized that before. That's just wonderful, darling, that you have that kind of, hang on, it says Seymour. Yes, that kind of open and honest communication is really what's necessary here. And if you don't have it, because of somebody not being able to listen, and there are people like that, then you develop yourself, and then you'll know what to do with them later on, whether you want to stay with them and whether this is working for you or not. You know, I think we ought to have really good reasons to partner and to divorce. We ought to have really good reasons. That means we ourselves must be balanced and forgiving and ready to move on. That's all. To move on into the relationship or out of it for good reasons, highest self reasons. Okay? All right, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your turkey or whatever else you're having, and make yourself happy this holiday. I'm grateful for you. So thank you so much for listening. Dear God in heaven, we thank you so much for all of us. Our heaven is now. We thank you so much as we now go about opening ourselves to deeper and deeper levels of love in you. We thank you so much. And we open ourselves now to knowing fully in the next few days what steps we're going to take to make ourselves more loving people and better partners with ourselves and our partners if we have one. Thank you, dear God, for all of this. And we say this prayer now, asking to fully see these wonderful things to be grateful for in this life. In your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of every dear person listening to this show today. Thank you for them. And so it is. Amen. Guys, you have a blessed week too. Take care. Bye-bye.